Ellie, how are you?
Hey, Aman, what's up? How's it going?
Nothing much. Alexander, welcome. Hustleton, welcome. XAI, welcome. XAI, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you. So, my question is, should I change my profile picture to a picture of myself or should I leave it a check mark? Thank you.
I don't care what you do. If you want to be, what I care about right now is that audio on YouTube is working. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please let me know that the audio is working. Um, so XAI, the thing, so are you anonymous? Like, did you not share who you are before? Is that why you're asking?
Yes, I am mostly anonymous, but
Okay.
everything I read says I should change it to not anonymous and put a profile picture.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. So being anonymous, so I was anonymous for a few years before I added my name to my account at late 2020. So for the first 4 years, 5 years, I was anonymous. And there's pros and cons to both being anonymous versus being, open about it. Um, if you add your actual name and your profile picture, what happens is you get an opportunity to kind of meet people in person, make personal connections on a personal level, and that really enhances your experience, I think, with the Tesla community. But on the other hand, not even though 99% of people are, genuine and they're, nice and everything, there's always that 1% who is a little off. And, you might get some of that. So it's up to you. It depends on what you're trying to do with your account. Okay, back to Tesla. Ellie, what's going on with your area? Any news?
Friday will be my first day, so a week from today, I'm gonna start working for Tesla officially.
Congratulations. That's awesome. So Eli shared with me about a week ago that he got accepted at Tesla, but he wasn't ready to share with everybody. And now he is. So you're starting when you said on Monday?
Friday. So basically, apparently, you have 2 dates. It's either the first or the 16th. So mine's gonna be the 16th, next Friday.
Congratulations. Now, what are you going to do for Tesla?
I'm gonna start with sales.
That's awesome. That's really good. So, I mean, I understand when people start working for Tesla, they can't really join these spaces as often, or when they do join, they can't share as much as they used to be able to. So that's a bit of a bummer for me, but I'm really happy for you. And to the extent that you can share your insights, maybe as you go through sales trading, training, you can maybe share with us some tips that Tesla tells people to use when they're informing potential customers, and we can use the same tips in here. I think that might be a good way.
Definitely, I will definitely make sure to do all that stuff. Also, you should know, Iman. I mean, the process was crucial and long, but I must say, I know everybody within the company, at least here in Israel. Let me tell you, I know so much. And honestly, I know it's a big space, but you should recognize the fact that because of this space, I knew way more and way better than everybody else. I'm not trying to talk down on them or anything, but seriously, the amount of knowledge that I brought to the interview because of you guys and especially you, it was uncanny.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. And that is obviously despite machines' efforts to derail this space left and right every single day. And despite that headwind, we are able to push forward with spreading knowledge and insight. Machine?
Well, I put a disagree because Ellie here tried to compliment you for providing information. This is disgusting, sort of fake news that's going around Israel. This might be the worst fake news going around Israel I've ever heard. Is that you are contributing positively to Tesla information. Meanwhile, you and Omar are sharing fake information about people saving money on their Teslas. I go to look at my app for the first time about how much money I save allegedly from not using gas, and I go look at the electricity rate that they assume, and they assume 25 cents per kilowatt hour, which, as everyone knows, it's about 45 cents here. So basically, you have liars in Tesla, liars in you. It's just all around. Musk lying about Kamala Harris. It's disgusting.
Okay, man, you entered with a bang today. Are you feeling all right? Did you get up from the right side of the bed?
Yeah, I banged your mom last night, so I feel great.
Oh, wonderful. So at the top of your screens is a post. How much did you save driving your Tesla? Post your gas savings screen in a reply to the tweet at the top. All you got to do is go to your app, take a screenshot of your gas savings, and reply to it so that people understand what Machine just said is a completely unusual case in California. California is, for whatever reason, taxing left and right and increasing the cost of electricity, which makes no sense whatsoever. Um, so I feel sorry for Machine, but it doesn't apply to 99% of the world where people actually do save very material amounts driving EVs. Dallas?
Yeah, first off, congrats, Eli, on your job. That's fantastic. I think a lot of people in this space would always aspire to work for Tesla, as we're all fans, and I think it's really interesting. I curious, are you able to divulge or discuss how you went about, inquiring about the job, getting connected with the interview, that kind of process, or just interested there?
If it's okay for now, I rather not to share anything. I still in the early stage, but I make sure that if I know that I can do anything like that, I will definitely bring it.
Okay, great. Machine?
Ellie, I think you've been around here long enough to know that this space is a killer of Tesla employees. Anyone who's a Tesla employee who comes on here and keeps talking, they lose their job. So be very careful.
That's a great comment, Machine, and you're right, and I will be careful.
I just need to type up this sponsorship reply to the space and pin it at the top, and I can't leave Machine alone for 30 seconds. He just spreads so much misinformation in 30 seconds. It's amazing. Hustletown.
I just want to spread congratulations as well. I want to work for Tesla so bad. I mean, I'm retired military and I don't want to work for anybody, but I will make an exception I would sweep the floors over there just to get the options, just to get the price on the options down. Um, Man, congratulations and do great things over there, please.
All right. Pinned at the top. Tesla Live is sponsored by Joa Life. You can use the code TSLA Live for 5% off your purchases or go through the link, which makes it easier. We achieved a very significant milestone. There's a lot of people purchasing Joa Life products using the code, which is really cool. It's really awesome. I'm glad the sponsors our only sponsor right now is succeeding. We have a second sponsor also signed up, and we're working on a paragraph with them to. I'm gonna get a paragraph from them soon to read as well. And next week, I am starting subscribers/sponsors only spaces. And the purpose of that space, maybe it's going to be like a monthly, once a month kind of thing, is to, you know, kind of circle back with my sponsors, make sure I understand what their needs are, make sure I understand how I can help them brainstorm ideas and ensure the success of this space. This space needs to get the financial sustainability. It's moving in the right direction, but we're not there yet. And I think the space subscriber only, sponsors only spaces will really help. And I'm just so glad that our first sponsor is succeeding. So that's really good. I see Machine is raising his hand, but I know he's gonna talk it down and be super negative, and I don't want to hear it right now. So, Wessex, literally anyone other than Machine. Who wants to sing us a song? Dallas?
Yeah, one topic that I think would be interesting to discuss is Rivian's up 10% today. I don't know if that's pertinent to anyone, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's probably because Elon's political posts. We'll get back to that. Machine.
I am fully on board with you trying to make something for yourself instead of being unemployed and not making any money for many years since Tesla stock has been up. I applaud this. I just think your strategy of being Tesla specific only cannot be one of high growth. The market for people going on the internet and following Tesla, I mean, people are making money off of it for sure, like Omar, I'm sure, Sawyer. And I think you can. I just think spaces, like how much can you really grow if you just focus on Tesla? You got to have spaces about other companies, other investment opportunities. I think.
Well, we're not. Again, you're spreading misinformation. We're not just focused on Tesla. We discuss all of Tesla's competitors, from legacy automakers to other EV companies in US, in China. We discuss battery energy. We discuss artificial intelligence. I recommend that you check out our Monday night spaces at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And this is just the beginning. And even with TSLA Live alone, okay, like today, for example, Joe Alive is doing a great job supporting this space. I mean, they signed up for the subscriber on X, which is $239 a month. And if anyone does subscribe, please use web, like sign up via web, because if you sign up on the app, then Apple takes 30%. Okay, so we don't want that, obviously. Sign up via x.com on the web, and when you do, you're sponsoring this TSLA Live, and especially if you have a business, I will read a paragraph promoting your business. Say something like, "This episode is sponsored by your business, and here are some of the products that's coming up," or whatever. We will tailor it to. I'll tailor it to your business and your products. We have right now on an average day, like yesterday's space, there is nothing going on. No earnings results, no major Elon news, no nothing. Just an average day. I think we got somewhere about 67,000 listeners around the world in the first 24 hours, and that kind of continues to grow. On average, we get about 5 to 10,000 listeners around the world, all Tesla fans, investors, focused on finance, stocks, AI, EVs. So this is a really valuable group of people, and I think businesses are interested in. So I just have to kind of strategize, think about this a little bit more and think about growing that sponsorship. Eventually, I see it growing to dozens of sponsors. Dozens of sponsors is the goal. And maybe Wessex since he's the global sales executive that has decades of experience, maybe he can help me out with it a little bit. Wessex, what do you think?
I'm in, man. Whatever you need, you let me know.
Okay, perfect. All I need is to kind of just shut this machine guy up, and then I'm good. XAI?
Yeah, thank you. No, I disagree. I think Tesla is probably one of the most important companies of our generation. And as they roll into robo taxi and robotics, and most importantly, they make this investment into XAI, I think that they probably become the most important company. And we'll see what happens, but definitely plenty to go around with Tesla as your focus. I don't think you need to focus on anything else.
Well, I mean, I agree with you. I think Tesla will always be the center, right? And with Tesla alone, as the company grows, customers grow, fans grow, this space will grow as well. And we can definitely get to tens of thousands of listeners just with Tesla alone. But there are other reasons why you cover other companies, because Tesla has its hands on so many industries, so many different technologies, that it would be incomplete if we didn't cover other companies. So it's TSLA live, well, but we discuss many other companies, many sectors as well. Machine?
Pass.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Wessex.
Yeah, I want to say congratulations to Ellie. We've been talking for months. I know that's been his dream to get into Tesla. So congratulations, man. I do have a question for you, Ellie, that I'm just going to say you don't have to answer, of course. I am curious about this for any new Tesla employee. If they have, and again, don't answer this, no big deal if you don't want to or can't. But I'm wondering if new employees at Tesla, like yourself, eventually have the opportunity to buy shares at a discounted rate. That happens a lot at certain companies, or if there's any stock options that are kind of part of a employee package.
Once again, if it's okay with you, I can probably talk about it more once I'm in, and they will guide me about what I can and cannot share. And if necessary, I can DM you and talk about it because I do know you. So for now, we'll just keep it, hush hush. And thank you for the kind words, everybody. Yaman, my wife registered to X, and she has an account. She will probably ask to speak every now and again, ask you if it's okay to talk about geopolitics and stuff. Just so you know.
Is she requesting right now? Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for giving me a heads up, because I was like, I don't recognize this person. Also, while Anna comes up, just a quick shout out to Kendall. Kendall made a big purchase yesterday on Joa Life using the code, and that was a big help for both Joa and for the space. For any purchases, I get 5%. So it's one of the ways you can help the space. And Joa is a they support many contributors and the community in general. So it's a good sponsor to have in my mind. Anna, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me again. So I really wanted to circle back to the marketing thing of you need to grow in order to get sponsors. Well, I think the first rule in marketing is have a niche. So basically, you're supposed to be the golden fish of every business that wants to target specific people with specific interests. So it says a bit about my geopolitical views, but this is the way I view the thing. Like, you all were apologetic and explaining how much other topics you cover, while the answer is yes, we're into Tesla and this is our biggest power, and this is awesome.
Great, thank you. Any updates from the region?
Well, we're still waiting on Iran to attack, which is a part of the attack, the psychological attack, for us being anxious every day, like nobody knows whether they should leave for work or not. Like everything is going on regularly, but it's very expected and a very tense situation. So it's part of the psychological warfare. Beside this, in this region, nothing specific. There was a big interview with Bibi on Times Magazine today, where he said some things regarding the war and his political his political position. Nothing that I think will interest you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Machine.
I have a full summary of the Middle East conflict over the last 50 years. Do you want my summary? It's the fully correct one,
No.
the only one from
No.
a person who understands both the Mideast and the Western viewpoints.
Okay. So yeah, I really recommend people stick to their expertise areas. We know that you don't have much respect for anyone outside of California, let alone the US. And if I have a question about California, I will ask you. Go ahead.
You know, I love my Israeli brethren. these people, very smart in biotech, and for the most part, falsely attacked by the left in mainstream media in the West. And I don't know if they fully understand this, because from what I understand, they think the West supports them, which we do militarily. But the fact is that the media in the West fully focuses on the Palestinian plight, which there certainly is a lot of that. But what the media misses, and which Israelis know inherently, but don't understand that other people don't see this, is they don't see that Palestinians and Middle Eastern Arabs in general don't want Israel to exist. That statement is not an exaggeration. This is not Elon Musk calling Kamala Harris communist. This is what these people believe. You can go look at the polls of Palestinians, polled by Palestinian researchers, about what do they think about right of return. This is basically the idea that basically all of the Palestinian refugees and their descendants into the West Bank and Gaza deserve to go back to Israel, the sovereign nation, if they so choose. And any peace agreement that has been debated in the past has never come to fruition because they've always demanded right of return. And all these Arab countries who agree with Palestinians and fight, Iran supporting them, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, all want right of return. They don't want Israel to have sovereignty. That is the crux of the issue, and the West totally misses this.
Anna, would you like to respond to that?
Oh my God, I have so much to say. I'm afraid I'm going to waste all of your time and you won't speak about Tesla at all. So first of all, we are completely aware that the Western media is very against us, especially since October 7th. All the campuses were like demonstrating against Israel, pro-Gaza, and then singing "From the river to the sea." Asked which river and which sea, they had no idea. They had no idea that homosexual people being shot in Gaza, it's illegal. So we are fully aware. Even like we have our Saturday Night Live show called Great Country, and there was a sketch of a BBC reporter interviewing Sinwar, and there was a baby who was one of the kidnapped kids from 7th of October, for October 7th, and he was crying. And the BBC reporter asks him, "Oh my God, are you being tortured by an Israeli baby in your own home, being and he avoids you of sleep? This is terrible, terrible." And then they're like donating to Palestine or something. So we are fully aware of that. It's a huge issue here. It's a huge topic. We even have an entire ministry devoted to this. Ministry, have the ministry for the Hasbara. I don't know how to say it. It's like explaining Israel outwards.
A machine?
Okay, fair enough. The many Israelis I talked to were not aware of this until maybe in the last few months. But anyways, I think in summary, and I don't know how to wrap this back to Tesla, other than this geopolitical conflict is not going away anytime soon, because the West cannot. The West needs to put pressure on Arab countries and Palestinians to actually come to a real agreement of peace. It is not about settlements. This is a joke. Okay, like yeah, settlements don't help in the West Bank. That's not the fundamental impasse to making peace. The lack of peace is because Palestinians don't want to just have their own country. That is a total lie.
Machine, what do you think is the risk of a full-on war starting in the Middle East in the next 12 months?
This is totally up to Hezbollah and Iran, in my opinion. If they so choose to engage further, Israel will absolutely fight back stronger. Each hit will be stronger than the last. Israel's too smart. You see what they did? Do you see what they did? They planted this bomb somehow months ago in Tehran. I mean, have you seen the Apple TV show Tehran? This it's better than the actual show. The actual Israeli Mossad is better than what they portray in the show.
Okay.
And
Just
don't
can you just
act-
answer the question? What do you think is the probability?
60% chance.
60%. That is a very off consensus call. So maybe I'll try to come up with a way to formalize it into a coffee bet, because I think most people do not expect this to escalate out of hand in the next 12 months. Machine?
The reason why I think it's the highest chance now is because the Arabs are fully believe that this is their best chance in terms of Western quote support in terms of the population is going the easiest on them now. I mean, you had the Ayatollah literally tweet, "Thank you to these protesters in the US for doing all this work." So if there was a time to do it where the sentiment would be in their favor the most, it's now. So that's why I'd give it the high chance.
Okay. Any other comments on the topic? Please request to speak. Otherwise, I think Alexander has a question or comment on another topic. Alexander?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about yesterday's space a bit. We talked about renewable energy, and it seems to me that there's division in the US regarding this question, because some of the speakers said that it would be more expensive to have renewable energy in the mix than fossil fuels. Isn't that right?
Are you referring to Tom? I don't think that's what he said specifically, but he said electricity cost is rising, and I think he must have been listening to Machine a lot. I think that's very specific to California.
Okay, so how much do kilowatt hour cost in the US, roughly?
Does anyone have the data? Wessex? In the US, I think, if I remember correctly, it's about 13, 14, 15 cents per kilowatt hour. But in California, it's like 40, 45 cents per kilowatt hour.
Really?
Hey,
That's
Yaman,
Yeah.
I can't hear. I'm sorry, I can't hear Alexander. Can you put me down and bring me back up?
Yeah. Yeah, Alexander. The thing to notice here is I think the range is extremely wide. And but once you have solar panels and battery, like Powerwall battery, then incremental energy generation costs just a couple of cents per kilowatt hour, and that's considering the depreciation of the equipment. So that's really where I think we need to steer the conversation a little bit. Like you
Okay.
have the option to have very low costs for incremental kilowatt hour generation. You don't have to consider these absurd prices that are forced on people in places like California.
Yeah, because what hit me was because I can only relate to how we have it in Sweden. So we have 80% renewables and 20% nuclear here. And we have four sets of energy regions. And the most expensive one is still cheaper than the US. So I don't understand this thing about that renewables wouldn't work. It works here and it works in Norway. So, I mean, yeah.
Hustletown?
Yeah, I think that what Tom was trying to say was that the mass conversion of renewable energies, like if someone snapped their fingers and we grabbed all the mining stuff from to make all the renewables, I think that's his angle, is saying that trying to do it all at once would cause more pollution or atmosphere, stuff like that. So I think that was his angle.
Yeah, I mean, you got to realize, he said, I think he's the third or the fourth generation in the oil industry in his family. So, you're not going to convince him one way or another for a long time. And you can only inch towards a common ground and convincing him. And yesterday's space was just an introduction for both sides to feel comfortable in that they can speak their mind, they can speak what they believe. And then once you kind of get the two sides into one group, into one space, then you can kind of progress toward a common ground over time. But you have to realize this is going to take a long time to convince people. These are people who are multiple generations in the gasoline industry. I mean, 90% of the things that he said yesterday are just completely false. Everybody knows that in this space. But outside of the space, nobody knows that. Outside of the Tesla community on X, no one really knows these things. They actually do believe that battery production is extremely harmful for Earth, or that they don't realize that you can recycle 99% of the battery, but if you burn gas, like there's no recycling gasoline, right? But that's the reality we're living in right now, and I think that's why this space is so important. I think this space is going to be very important going forward, and that's why you should sign up for a subscription or sponsor the space or find sponsors for the space or become a patron, become a subscriber on YouTube, become a member on YouTube. And I think this space will grow into tens of thousands of listeners in the next 6 months to 12 months. And then eventually hundreds of thousands of listeners over the coming years. But it's going to have to grow with Tesla. It's going to have to grow with Tesla. And like Anna said, Tesla is the niche, but it can't, like this space can't stay as a niche. It has to grow outside that niche at some point. But that's, I think, years down the line. Alexander?
Yeah. So do the US import a lot of oil, or how is the mix there of producing it in the US and importing it?
I mean, United States is now a net exporter of fossil fuels, and it is the biggest producer of energy in the world. So it's growing really fast, especially natural gas production. Oil production is high with shale gas and shale oil. And where it kind of lags a little bit is, renewable energy generation. It lags greatly behind China. EV adoption, it lags greatly behind China. Like in China, for example, in July, majority of the vehicles sold were new energy vehicles. For the first time ever in China in July, more than 50% of vehicles sold were new energy vehicles, grew 37% year over year, whereas the overall market in China dropped 3% year over year. In the US, that's about 10%. So we're a couple of years behind China on that front. I think robotaxis will change that, but yeah. Alexander, any other questions, comments?
Well, like I understand that US is a big producer of fossil fuels, and that the industry probably wants it to remain that you use a lot of fossil fuels. But look at like Norway. I mean, they are a big oil producer, and EVs are set to overtake gas cars there in like this fall, and charging stations are overtaking the gas stations.
I agree, but they have dozens of incentives offered to EV buyers over there, and they're very adamant about charging networks. And they have all the European automakers trying to dump their EVs in Norway because that's the only place where they can at least maybe break even with EV sales. That's not the case in US. Like the US government isn't behind Tesla to the extent that Norwegian government is behind EVs. And I don't know if the US government will ever get there. So like, you also have to recognize some of the things. Like, so I said 90% of the stuff that Tom said yesterday were false, misguided, misinformed. But there was 10% that is actually real, right? He talked about he drew through his oil field hundreds of miles. You can't do that in a Cybertruck today, right? because the range is not there. And it's going to have to get there if you want people like Tom to buy the Cybertruck at some point.
How many hold this belief, you think?
Well, Paul, what belief exactly?
That you can't drive EVs and fossil fuels are the future.
Well, I don't think that's what he said. I don't think he said fossil fuels are the future. So do you want to revise your question?
I mean, he like stated that we need to continue using diesel for it to work.
That's what Omar said too. Omar said, and I agree, fossil fuels will have to play a role in the next 10 years at least. Let's say 10 to 20 years. Because Omar said specifically, because we have to keep the country going, we have to keep the world economy going, and you can't just switch to EVs today. Do you disagree with that?
Well, what specific use case do you need diesel for that EVs can't like be used for?
Right now, range, right? Look, listen, you and I agree that it makes no sense to buy anything other than a Tesla today. I fully believe it makes zero sense to buy anything other than a Tesla today. Okay. But the fact is, more than 90% of people still do buy something other than a Tesla. So we need to understand what the bottleneck is. And I think it's valuable for that reason to have people like Tom and come into the space. And Matthew, he's here too. Maybe he can speak to it a little bit. Matthew, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me again. We had a great time yesterday, and it was a great space, and I'm really enjoying today. So I think here's the kind of point of view from somebody who's in Houston, Texas. So no doubt about it. I mean, Houston is the energy capital of the world. So you're not you got a lot of guys like Tom that think the way that he thought yesterday. Now, you're also starting to see, though, a lot of Tesla cars show up in the Houston area, which they work great in Houston because it's a big city and there's plenty of charging and you can charge at your house or there's a supercharger down the road. I think the point that we were trying to make yesterday deals with people in the field like myself who, like, we're a natural gas generator rental company. So we take the natural gas that comes out of the oil well that would normally go to a flare, and we take that as a feedstock into a generator that then powers the artificial lifts at a well site. So think like a pump jack or a lac pump, something like that, to move the product down the line. And in a typical day, they're 12 to 14-hour days for the guys in the field, and you have multiple pad sites. I mean, there's thousands of pad sites like in the Eagle Ford and in the Permian that the oil field is very slow to adapt technology. So a lot of guys, you have to literally go drive every location to make sure that there's not a problem at the well or there's not a leak somewhere that you're not seeing in your measurement gauges. And so you're putting hundreds of miles a day on a vehicle, and time is not your friend because let's say you've got to go run a route that has 40 pad sites on it and you got to get that done. And if you run into a problem, it can extend your day. And the last thing you want is to be out in the field and run out of power. Now, I'm not one that says a Cybertruck would not work out in that application, but it would be different because of the difficulties of going from location to location in time. I mean, all of our trucks run on diesel power. And look, they're reliable. And I'm not saying that the Tesla Cybertruck is not reliable, but you're putting 100,000 miles a year on a vehicle, and you need that vehicle to last for 4 years. And we've got diesel pumps everywhere, and then also we have diesel tanks that we set on remote locations so that our guys in the field can go to one spot, fill up, and they're gone for the day. And if they have to fill up somewhere else, they can very easily, because there's not a bunch of electric charging stations out there. Now you're starting to see the big chains like Flying J. I noticed the other day after the space, they're putting in a GM, General Motors electric charger. Now I don't know if a Tesla will work on that or not, or if other vehicles, Ford can work on it. I'm not sure. And maybe that's something that you can talk about later today. So there are some charging starting to show up, but you can't be 60 miles down a lease road and say, oh man, it's another 120 miles to the closest um, supercharger or
I mean,
electrical port.
these superchargers will proliferate, will continue to increase, and you don't have to go 60 miles for one. And I think Tesla shared a stat that was very valuable. I don't remember off the top of my head, but most of the country is already within a few miles of a supercharger, and that will only improve better and better. And um, the charging speed for the Cybertruck is also going to improve. But the reality is, Matthew, Cybertruck owners will save several $1,000s a year for the life of the vehicle. So if the life of the vehicle is more than 10 years, let's say, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars in savings. So if that means you have to plan ahead a little bit in getting charged every night, then that's what it means. And I don't think Tesla, at this point at least, is trying to. I don't think Tesla is at this point trying to appeal to 100% of truck buyers, but that will also happen in the future.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's no doubt about it. What we do is not what most normal people do. So I accept that. And by no means am I, beating up on Tesla. I think what has done is great, and Elon's a great person, no doubt about it. And I'm happy to see the success of Tesla continue to grow. But just to kind of give you all an idea of the ranges that we deal with down here is all I wanted to
Okay,
tell you.
Alexander.
Yes, I want to ask you, Matthew, are there any other use case for the technology you use out in the fields to mine any other natural resource than oil?
So on the technology front, oil and gas is the mindset is very outdated, and at some point something is going to have to change because it's going to break. There's so much advancements in technology that oil and gas industry does not use. For example, when Elon came out with Starlink, oil and gas operators pay tens of thousands of dollars a month to monitor their oil well, and you could easily put a Starlink kit there and remove that old technology. But the bigger companies, the people inside the buildings don't want to bring the Starlink in because then it will remove their jobs. So they're fighting for their jobs at that point, which I understand that also. Um, but there is lots of technology that could be deployed in the oil and gas world, and it will be deployed. It's just a question of, will those companies accept the change, or will they be broken and forced to adapt to the change? And the other thing too, like Bitcoin mining's really taken off, and but you run into, I mean, there are thousands of natural gas generators running in any oil field, no matter where you are, and you could easily hook up Bitcoin mining and make currency from that. But you run into some legality issues because of landowner rights and stuff like that. But I hope I answered your question on some of that technology.
Yeah, okay. I also wanted to know what is your stance on like CO2 emissions and climate change?
So look, I want clean water. I want clean air. I think it's very important. I will also tell you that oil and gas extraction in the United States is done so well. I mean, literally, if somebody drops, whether it's engine oil or a little bit of oil that comes out of the ground, it is a big deal. So the extraction process in the United States is incredibly clean. And um, look, they've put in a bunch of solar panels down in Pearsall, Texas. They've put in, I think it's 1,000 or 2,000 acres of solar panel, but they got rid of all the vegetation to put those solar panels in. Now, I don't necessarily. I think we need all forms of energy so that we can have cheap energy here in the U.S. But I will tell you, if you're extracting oil outside of the U.S., it's probably not the cleanest process you've seen. But I think the climate ebbs and flows, and I don't want people pouring toxic chemicals into water, and I want our air clean. But I also don't want to sacrifice natural gas production and oil production just because.
Okay, Wessex.
I was just curious, are they unionized?
No, so well, I guess some of the operators are, but most are not. You have, and this is just Texas speaking. You've got your big players, which is your Exxon Mobil and your BPs and your big guys, um, and those guys are really good. I mean, very safety conscious, very careful about the environment. For example, if you have a 500 horsepower higher engine, you have to meet strict emission regulations, which means adding catalytic converters to natural gas units, and then also adding NOx preventers on them, and all that is regulated um, through the federal government. So we have to turn in reports every month that shows what size units we have out in the field and emission standards. So they're really, really on top of that. I think the biggest problem that we have in the U.S. is flaring of natural gas, which they're trying to come to a sensible way to resolve that issue. We burn so much natural gas because there's less takeaway capacities. There's nowhere for that natural gas to go, and that's why you're seeing a bunch of LNG plants being developed along the Gulf Coast so that that gas, instead of being flared, can be transported through pipelines to the Gulf Coast, converted from a compressed natural gas to liquefied natural gas, so that then it can be exported out to the entire world. And then you do have independent operators. You have a lot of independent operators, but since COVID hit in 2020, you're seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So most of your operators in Texas are big operators.
Dallas, and I have a question for Matthew.
Hey, Matthew. Obviously, I live in Texas as well, so happy to see another Texan join the spaces here. Question for you, vehicle particular. I know the Cybertruck in its current trims that are available is kind of a rich guy's toy at the moment until the later trims are available at a lower price point. So fleet-friendly EV trucks available at the moment would be like a Ford Lightning. I see those in Dallas. The Atmos Energy trucks are Ford Lightnings now. And do you see any of that in the Houston area? Is that something in the oil and gas field that they've adopted at the Lightning? I see those in Dallas. The Atmos Energy trucks are Ford Lightnings now. And do you see any of that in the Houston area? Is that something in the oil and gas field that they've adopted at the moment?
No, see a lot more Teslas driving around Houston than Ford. Every now and then in Houston, I'll see a Ford Lightning. I have not seen any electric vehicles. I have not seen a Ford Lightning, and I have not seen a Tesla Cybertruck out in the field yet.
Any other questions for Matthew? Matthew, what do you need to see?
Office in the morning and go do your 12, 14-hour shift that you need to accomplish and come back home. Look, there's no doubt in my mind you don't bet against Elon. Okay, I think at some point it is going to get to where you're going to be able to take a Cybertruck or maybe a different version of a Tesla truck, um, out into the field. Um, And I think that I think the biggest struggle for us is how do we refuel it? And I know that you can plug it into a 110 outlet, and there are superchargers, and the I guess some of it too goes to the efficiencies of the oil field. It's not necessarily the efficient. So you could be in Three Rivers, for example, and get a phone call that something is going on in Carrizo Springs, Texas, that you're the only person out there that knows how to handle it, and you got to go take care of it. And in today's world, you can't say, well, hey, I got to go charge my car for 40 minutes or 30 minutes and then I'll be there. That won't work. So I think they need to get out there. I think they need to get in the field, and they need to get some runtime on them so that people can understand what is working and what is not working so that they can improve what is not working.
Okay, so you're saying if Tesla puts out, let's say, you work in an oil field and you have a crew of how many people in your fields per field?
Well, there's thousands of people every day. I mean, you've got lease crews
Okay.
out there and big
So let's
F5.
say dozens of them have Cybertruck. So let's say 5-10% of your crew has the Cybertruck at that point, and they've had it for a year or two. At that point, I guess it's proven that it can work in your fields as well, right?
Yeah, you'd have to get them out there, and those guys would have to attest to how well they work. Look, you show up in the oil field with your company logo on the side of it of a Cybertruck, everybody is going to be talking about it, saying, "Hey, we saw the first one out there," and they're going to want to know, "Hey, how is it? How is it doing? Are you able to drive the routes like you need to do? Is it holding up on the lease roads? Are you able to move your equipment in and out with it? All those things." But until people in this industry see it and hear it, they're going to be very afraid of it. And look, like I said before, I think it at some point it will work, but it's going to have to do that breakthrough. They could take it because look, these are tough guys
Okay.
out there.
So let's see. At what point do you think we're going to start seeing dozens of Cybertrucks in an oil field? Say what year? What year?
I think some of that will probably be driven by the big oil and gas operators, Exxon, BP, guys like that. Maybe they put a program out there where they incentivize their contractors or their employees. Maybe I don't want to say mandate it, but maybe they run a test program is probably how I would think that would work, where Exxon puts out, 20 of them into the field for testing, and everybody's riding around with them and seeing and hearing. That's probably how it'll probably change. And once those guys prove it to the market and the efficiencies are there, then I think you'll see people naturally start going that way.
So you're telling me that unless Exxon or Chevron make a deal with Tesla, we're not going to see Cybertrucks on the oil field? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I'm sure you might see one or two here in a little bit once the production of them increases. Um, but I don't think I'll put it to you this way. Nobody's going to go out and buy 20 of them and replace all their diesel trucks for a Tesla and bet on that right out of the bat.
I got you, but I'm sure there's some, maybe younger ones on your crew that are, early adopters of a technology, right? I'm sure there's going to be a few individuals buy it as well. Like I honestly don't see Tesla making a fleet deal with Exxon anytime soon.
Well, I mean, you if you have a vehicle out on location, you have big insurance policies on those vehicles because you have to have big insurance policies to be out there. So you're asking somebody to take a bet, and I'm not talking just one. I'm talking 10 or 15. That would all have to go under the insurance umbrellas, and then you're asking a company to invest, $500,000 to $1 million on something that they're not sure is going to work. And you can't look when someone calls and says, "We need you here," you have to be there. You can't delay, otherwise they'll replace you. So I just don't see anybody making that bet company wide on a hope and a whim. And I don't mean that meanly, but it's just not going to happen.
Okay. What percent of the trucks that you see on an oil field is F-150 versus F-250 and above?
So a majority of your vehicles out there are 3/4 tons and higher, meaning F-250 to F-350. The bigger bosses, which obviously there are less of them, drive the more traditional half-ton trucks. Most are driving 3/4, 1 tons, all the way up to even F-550s on your lease crew that have 4 guys inside a truck, and their truck is a flatbed and it's loaded down with welders, and then they're pulling a 18-foot flatbed trailer behind them full of welding parts and metal, and I mean it's a lot.
Okay, majority. So let's say 10, 20% on F-150, 80, 90% on F-250 and above.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, no clue?
Hey, Matthew, I appreciate you taking our questions. I was just wondering if you could give us a baseline idea of how people in your field generally view climate change, greenhouse gases, and that type of a threat, if it's something that's really discussed or, uh, obviously jobs are very important, top of mind when it comes to that type of stuff, which I appreciate, but just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, look, most of the guys that are on the field level, they're happy to have a good paying job, okay? Because, most of these towns where the oil exploration happens are not in big cities. They're in small rural parts of Texas. So these guys are having well-paid jobs. They like their jobs. I outside of the company making sure that there's no oil or contaminants spilled on the ground, nobody's sitting around an oil field, Derek, talking about CO2 emissions and all that stuff. It just doesn't. It doesn't hit their world.
Yeah. Well, on Monday, Trump is going to chat with Elon in an X space, and maybe some of these things will come up. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's going to break the internet. That's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Dallas.
Hey, Matthew, one last question. So I guess people always talk about administrations and their impacts on the oil industry as a whole. How quickly does an administration actually affect boots on the ground operations in the oil field? And, does it, a layman question, but does it even affect, or are we always producing at the same rate?
Yeah, great question. It really doesn't affect boots on the ground. I realize that no matter what administration you have up there, they tell you all this grand stuff. It really doesn't. Now the big players, your BP and those larger guys, will obviously drive more of that on their own. But I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and there are standards that have made it a lot better, right? Emission standards. You know, think diesel. There used to be a bunch of diesel generators out in the field burning diesel. Now they've mostly gone to nat gas, so nat gas burns cleaner than diesel. And there are some federal regulations that you have to be mindful of, but really, all in all, it is a very slow process. If an administration puts a order in, it's years before you see it on the ground level.
Okay, thank you. West 6, anything else on this front?
Well, I guess I was a little confused on just kind of the environment and why there's such concern about the Cybertruck potentially not working. Are we talking about hundreds of miles in the middle of nowhere? Can you maybe just summarize briefly the environment or what it is that it creates this concern about the Cybertruck maybe not being able to perform?
The first thing is we're in remote locations, so there's not a gas station every 10 minutes. You have towns that are spaced out 40, 50 miles. So that's your first concern. But then between towns, you're also on lease roads. So think, you're coming out of Catula and you go 35 miles east on a 2-lane country road, and then you're going north on a lease road that you have to drive a certain speed limit, only 15 or 20 miles an hour, whatever the landowner wants you to. So then you're going on that lease road for another 10 or 15 miles. Then you're sitting on location doing whatever work you want to do. Your vehicle, for the most part, if you're only there for 30 minutes, you leave it running because it's hot outside. I mean, you got to think in Texas, it's 110 degrees. You go outside, you've got to work on something. And so you do your work, then you come back. Well, then you do that a couple times a day. Your fuel efficiencies are not necessarily the best because these trucks are big and heavy. And so then if you have to go fill up after doing 2 of those routes, you can go to this gas station. There's a gas station 20 miles down the road and you can fill up and then you continue your day. That's not in There's no big superchargers down there yet. I realize they're coming, but right now there's not. So if I know when we're out in the field, I know where the closest gas stations are just because I work that area. I know I can go, I know I can fill up. It takes me however long to fill my truck up, go inside, get something else to drink besides water that's in the back, and then I continue my day. Um, and look, it's hard for me to tell you if the Tesla truck will do it or not because I don't have one. But I'm also not going to go buy one just to try it to see if it works as an experiment. Um, Now that doesn't mean that won't change in 5 years, but right now I can't do that. I can't put my company at risk and say, hey, good luck. I think these things will work, and they don't. Then I've got a problem.
Wessex.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I appreciate all the points you're making. It sounds like an issue of or a concern of range, not necessarily durability, although it's unproven, arguably. It's like, and I appreciate all the points you're making. It sounds like an issue of or a concern of range, not necessarily durability, although it's unproven, arguably. Yaman, I'm meeting tomorrow with our local police department about 40. The police can go up to the Tesla owner and ask to retrieve video so they can find out what really happened. But I have a hidden agenda, a friendly one, of trying to persuade them to consider a cyber truck for the police department in the future, maybe not in the near future. And so it ties into our conversation right now because the economics of police cars are often sitting and idling and burning gas constantly, like Matthew mentioned. They have to keep the engines running for whatever reason, et cetera, et cetera. And so it is going to be interesting. I'd like to see Tesla kind of weigh in a little bit to really maybe kit out police vehicles. And secondly, kind of look at the economics because I would argue, and maybe Matthew, I don't know if you have a lot of vehicles, but anybody in your business that has a lot of vehicles, I probably would consider a cyber truck. And look, if it doesn't work, maybe just sell it. But the economics of energy consumption could really make a strong argument for making a purchase in this area. And so I'm excited to see kind of how fleets and other companies adapt. But I would imagine one vehicle at a time would be the appropriate way to try it out in the near term.
Yeah, no, there's no question. It's range. I mean, that's the biggest question is how far can it go, and when we're having a long day, because you can easily burn a tank of fuel out on your shift. How easy is it to go and get filled up and be able to make it home or back to the shop, whatever that case may be? It's definitely a range issue.
Matthew, is there anything that Tesla can do or demonstrate today with the Cybertruck, the way it is, that would change your mind a little bit? Anything Tesla, any data that Tesla can share, any announcement that Elon can make, anything?
Really, I'm sure someone at some point will buy one Tesla and put it out there. Okay. But it's just going to take, think about this. In 2014, the oil field was mainly burning diesel generators. And when we showed up and the market showed up with nat gas generators that would reduce all that diesel consumption, it took years to convince operators to go from diesel to nat gas because they were afraid of the reliability of a natural gas engine running their production because it was not done in mass. So it took 2 to 3 years just to go from diesel power generation to natural gas generation, which natural gas burning is better than diesel burning, right? So you're going to have the exact same thing here with this. a diesel pickup truck versus an electric vehicle. It will happen. It is going to just take time for people to buy it and try it, and the psychology change to understand that it will work.
Okay, I mean, I understand all that, but I'm asking you today, like Elon, with all the data that he has, what can Elon say? What can Elon do? What can Tesla do today to accelerate that process without relying to other people to buy the Cybertruck right now?
Man,
Anything, any data.
you're really putting me on the spot here.
Yeah, this is the
Because
purpose of the space. Come on, you're on the storyboard. You always be ready to be put on the spot. Like, for example, I'll give you one example here. I'll help you out a little bit, okay? What if Tesla came out tomorrow and said something like, you know what, we made a deal with Exxon, like you mentioned. We made a deal with Exxon, and now Exxon is going to put 1,000 Cybertrucks in their fleet. Would that make a material change in your view?
Of course it would. And it kind of like the analogy that I just told you on the diesel to nat gas generator, diesel truck to electric car. It's 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 a it is Here's the mindset. We've always done it this way. This way is not broken. Why fix it? Okay. And you have, reliability, and that's, and I don't mean in terms of a truck. I mean in terms of the oil and gas producer has to produce this much oil a day. And if there's a problem, someone needs to be able to get there no matter what. And you can't say, well, I got to go charge up my car. I'll be there in 2 hours. I'm just making that number up. I realize it doesn't take 2 hours to charge an electric vehicle, but it'll be the psychology changing. And for me personally, I'm not a huge company, obviously. I'm not Exxon. I'm not these big guys. I'm a small guy. So I think it would probably have to take larger outfits converting over to electric Cybertruck and proving to the rest of the industry
Okay.
that it works.
All right. Well, Omar is here now. Omar, welcome. Matthew just said that if Tesla makes a deal with Exxon or Chevron, say for like 1,000 Cybertrucks, and it's announced, it would change a lot of minds on the oil field about how capable the Cybertruck is. So maybe that's something to keep in mind. And Matthew, did you say you have thousands of workers working for you?
No, I was just saying in the industry, and just like in the Eagle Ford, you have thousands of guys every day getting into diesel trucks, going into the field to
I
do
know,
their job.
but if we can put you in touch with Tesla somehow, would you be able to switch out your fleet? Maybe do 10%?
I would I would absolutely do that because you guys would all follow it and it would be a big hit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We
um,
can talk about it here. Maybe once on a weekly basis. You kind of get Cybertrucks on your fleet, and I'll bring you up and talk about your business.
okay, well, I'd do that for y'all.
All right, perfect. Freddie.
So I just wanted to try to go through some of the economics behind the Cybertruck and why it makes so much sense for a commercial user. Um, in Texas, you're in Houston, I'm in Dallas. My cost of electricity is around 12 cents per kilowatt hour, and the Cybertruck has a 135 kilowatt hour pack, give or take. And it has 320-mile range. That translates to about 2.4 miles, 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour. So your fuel cost is 5 cents per mile. Just compare that against what you're paying on your diesel trucks. A Cybertruck will get 320 miles on the tank, especially driving at 15, 20 miles an hour, regular, um, those sorts of speeds. The usage really goes up when you're driving 70, 75, 80 miles an hour and faster, and that's because air resistance quadruples every time you double your speed. But at lower speeds, you're going to get a good efficiency on the Cybertruck. And then, you talk about, hey, I have to wait before I can show up to a job site if I'm called. One of the benefits of EVs is that they can be kept on a charger at all times. You can install chargers at your workplace, you can install chargers at your home, and then you just plug in when you get home. That means that every day you wake up or you start the day off with a full charge. So it's not like a truck where you only get gas whenever you need it. You always have that 320 miles on tap. And then the last thing I would add is it's possible you don't have to buy a Cybertruck in order to test um, whether or not this works. You could always rent it for about a week. You're not going to get the same charging benefits as somebody who owns a Cybertruck because you're not going to own a charging station at your house or at your business. But you can sort of imagine that to be the case. You can discount all the charging issues that you have at the beginning of the day. Obviously, if you need to charge in the middle of the day, you know, what you see is what you're going to get. But, that's just one cheaper way of testing it out without, going out and buying 20 Cybertrucks.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, and that's a good point. A lot of these guys they're given company vehicles, and so they drive them home. So, for example, in the Eagleford, you've got a lot of people that live in San Antonio or they live in Laredo, and so then they drive into the field, so to speak, into their workplace, and then go do the work that they have to do all day, and then they drive back home. So I I just don't know. The last thing you want to do is be stranded out in the middle of nowhere without understanding the capabilities of the vehicle that you're in. It's obviously easy. It's easier for people now, at least people in our industry, to understand. I'm driving. I'm leaving San Antonio, and I've got to go down to Dilley, and I'm going to stop off at the gas station because I've got half a tank, fill up, go into the field, do my work, and go back home. So I mean, I hear you. It's just the amount of miles we put on a day is just astronomical.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if it's less than 320, right, um, then that works. If it's more than 320, then you have to charge in the middle of the day.
Matthew, how many miles do you guys put on average for a truck? How many miles a day?
Oh, I mean, 100,000 miles a year.
Okay. So
It's a
you'll talk
lot.
about 300 miles a day if you work every day.
Yeah, and listen, not every day is 300 miles a day. I don't want y'all to think that. Um, but you've got a lot of people that go between oil plays where they'll be in the Eagleford one day and then they're in the Permian the next day. Now, obviously not everybody, um, but it is a lot of miles every day.
Okay. Alexander.
Yeah, I want to suggest maybe Omar can try to work as an oil field worker uh, one day and just see how that works out with his
Hey,
Cybertruck,
Omar.
and maybe
Omar, have you
bring
ever
a
been
diesel.
have you ever
Oh,
been to an
Yeah,
oil
no, I
field?
think it would be a good idea. Like I was
yeah, Omar
suggesting,
already said he's coming down. Omar's coming in the oil
yeah,
field. So,
When? When?
yeah. When they send out FSD for the Cybertruck, I was planning to drive across the country. I was gonna stop in Salt Lake City, see Lincoln, drive through Texas, Oklahoma. So I'll stop by in Texas, and we can go take the Cybertruck and just go do some real work and see how it performs. I mean, I think the battery's pretty great. It's this version will get about 340 miles with the right wheels and everything on, and with the range extender, it'll go out to 470. So, if you've got 100,000 miles a year divided by, whatever, that should be about, if you divided it by 365, that's about 273 miles. If you divided it by 100,000 divided by 260 working days a year, then that's about 384. So, I think a Cybertruck with the range extender could handle 100,000 miles a year over 260 working days without needing to charge in the middle of the day. Um, depending on how many miles you're going, even without a range extender might work. So it would be worth doing some real world testing and see how it really holds up, how many chargers are out there, and whether it's really practical. Because, I mean, that is definitely a more extreme use case, obviously. Your average consumer is probably driving a fraction of that a day. But if it is practical, then you've got a lot of benefits of electric. Obviously, the electricity is lower cost, which is, flowing down to your bottom line if you're in a business. The maintenance is less. You've got huge onboard power, so you can run tons of tools out of the truck without having to have the engine running. You can have the air conditioner going without letting the engine run. So there's a lot of benefits that people would probably love. The FSD taking you between locations, also very powerful. Um, but people have legitimate questions about whether it's going to be practical or not, and it might be good to just go do some real tests, see how it really is.
No clue.
Hey, I was just going to volunteer with Omar. I'm in Salt Lake City too, near Lincoln. And if you want another Cybertruck to test a couple different things, I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah, Hustletown also volunteered. Obviously, everybody wants to hang out with Omar because he's so cool. He's so knowledgeable. I think he has a sign-up sheet. If you want to hang out with him, you submit your resume, a couple of pictures, and he takes it from there. Alexander.
I sure hope you have a drone or something, Omar, to take some really cool shots and add it to
Yeah,
YouTube.
I got a DJI Mavic 3. Cybertruck on the oil fields.
When? Let's decide on a date right now. So let's say they send the FSD next week. When can you do it?
I think September probably.
Okay, Matthew, you
Um,
down for September?
Yeah, I work in real estate. I'm broke as shit. I'll do it in
Not
September.
you. Not you. Matthew.
Yeah, we can make whatever work, whatever works. Because Omar, you got a long road to travel, so whatever works, we'll make it work.
All right, let's say
oh, I've done
September.
I've done the drive before entirely on FSD from California to Texas. I think we got over into we crossed the border into Texas on the first day. Then driving from the border into Austin took like another 12 hours. I was like, wow, I had no idea how big Texas is. You think, wow, okay, we're in Texas. And turns out you're not really close to Austin at all.
Man, when you're coming in, did you come in on I-10?
Yeah, I think so.
Was the speed limit still 85 out there?
Oh, yeah, that was amazing. I was like, wow, this is great. Texas has amazing speed limits. Like, and it's such a different environment compared to California. I mean, the max speed limit you're probably going to see here is 65. So being out there and seeing those 85 speed limits is like, you guys have it good out there. That's great.
Well, and really and truly, it has to be because Texas is so big. If they put a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit on our big interstates, it would take us forever to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
so true. Yeah, it's very different than other markets.
All right, back to Tesla. Thank you very much, Matthew. Much appreciated. It's a good follow-up to our earlier conversation from yesterday. We have more to cover. Tesla stock is up 5% today, now above $200 per share after Omar agreed to bring the Cybertruck to an oil field. And when it happens, it's probably going to higher. Omar, what catalyst do you think will lead to the stock rising to all-time highs?
I mean, the stock is really flat. It's been flat for a few years, flat to down, obviously. And it's all noise to me, right? They've got this technology here with FSD that is way bigger than even cars, okay? They've figured out how to get a computer to move through the world reliably without bumping into anything. So this is the game-changing technology. And everybody's so negative, the market's crashing. I'm buying shares thinking, am I an idiot? I might be a little crazy, but no, something tells me that this is going to change the world. And, nobody gets it. They're all thinking Waymo's ahead or, that Tesla's just a car company. They're thinking what matters is, how do people feel about Elon's politics? No one has really grasped what's going on with FSD. So there's going to be ups and downs. I just want to be patient. This could take years and years to really flesh out. It could take really 5 to 10 years for this to begin scaling across the globe in, its full capacity, being in South America, being in India, being in Australia, being in, Timbuktu. So it's going to take a while, but this company is going to be worth, I think, much more than it is today. So,
Okay, so you're telling me that to get to all-time highs, we need to see global rollout of robotaxis. Do you think that is the milestone?
no, no,
So
no.
by the way, at the top of your screens is this question. What do you think will be the catalyst that finally propels Tesla to new all-time highs? And we already have dozens of answers to this question. Throw in your guess. You can pick from dozens of milestones, really. I mean, there's a lot of things that Tesla is working on, and each one of them are material. I have an answer in my mind. Omar hasn't mentioned it just yet. But I'm curious. Wow, we have more than 114 replies. Like and repost, that sports the space. Omar?
Yeah, I don't think that they actually need to scale autonomy globally or roll it out globally. I think that they really just need to look at autonomy expectations. If people believe that this is going to happen, then the stock will reach all-time highs. You don't necessarily have to wait for it to actually happen. So, it's kind of like inflation expectations. Autonomy expectations are very important. If someone truly believes that robo taxis are coming and they're coming fast, they're going to have different purchasing decisions. Their likelihood of attaching FSD, their likelihood of buying cars, even multiple cars, maybe even stocking up on more cars than they need, changes. So the degree to which people believe autonomy is happening is important. And currently, autonomy expectations are very low. So as that increases, I think even the release of 12.5 will increase autonomy expectations. That'll eventually start to be reflected in the stock price because it'll eventually be reflected in software sales and vehicle sales.
Okay, great. Let's get other views. Wessex, did you get a chance to reply to the tweet at the top? And what did you put in? Okay, Wessex is sleeping. Michael.
I'm right here.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I haven't replied yet. But I think it's simply just generating revenue for the first time with the robotaxi fleet.
Okay. Actually, Miss Libby Palmer said the same thing, earning opportunities for users. There's some really interesting answers at the top. Michael, welcome.
Hey, Yaman, how's it going?
Good. What do you think is going to propel, which milestone, which catalyst will propel Tesla stock to new all-time highs, in your opinion?
I think they need to be rolling out FSD in Europe and China and making major progress in the disengagement miles so that it becomes very clear that they're on the path to making revenue from robotaxi. And then we can get a significant rally. And then once they're making revenues from robotaxi, I feel pretty confident that they'll be above all-time highs.
Okay, so you're saying if I go to, I know some of us are not big fans of Tesla FSD tracker, but that is all we have from a third-party perspective right now. So Tesla FSD tracker shows about 300 miles between critical disengagements today. What do you think that needs to be? Say 1,000. Let's say if it's 1,000, it shows 1,000. Do you think we're gonna get to? That's gonna be enough to convince people?
No, it's that's very far from where it needs to be um, to be able to do robotaxi unsupervised driving, basically. And what really matters is the rate of change and the pace of progress between releases. So you really want to see it multiply with each successive release, and you want Tesla to be putting out a multiplier release at least once every quarter. And if it's slower than that, then this catalyst might be further out.
Okay. I mean, do we have, let me see if we have machining here. Because this would be a great spot for him to start talking about how he believes Optimus will be the catalyst, even though when I look at these replies, especially the ones that are coming in just now, they're all about robotaxis. And even Michael, who's a deep thinker, is focused on disengagement rates. Michael, what about Optimus? What do you think people need to see to believe Optimus is not as far as people think? Like, for example, yesterday, Tom, our new EV skeptic, said Optimus is 60 years away, 60, 70 years away.
Yeah, I don't think Optimus is 60, 70 years away. I think it's already doing something useful for Tesla in their factories, as they mentioned in the previous quarterly call. But they haven't really scaled. It's like pilot. It's a pilot, basically. Then they're going to use it in the factories more in 2025, and then maybe they'll offer it to customers in 2026. So I think Optimus is like a 2026, 2027 story, and I'm hoping that Robotaxi can come into focus before then, and that's why I'm more towards Robotaxi as the catalyst.
Okay. Just for fun, what do you think is going to be the catalyst that propels Tesla stock to all-time highs?
I think similar to what people have been saying, maybe, well, I do think in general it's FSD robotaxi progress, and maybe it could be them actually putting a stake in the ground in terms of commercial launch.
Okay. Interesting. What about the new Model Y? Tesla is going to start, Omar, right? Tesla is going to start production of the new Model Y at some point in the next, let's say, 6 to 9 months. I think that's going to be a major catalyst as well. What do you think?
I mean, that'll increase sales. It's part of the story. This is really a story about FSD. And, I really feel like a crazy person talking about this because I've been living with 12.5 and 75% of people are still on 12.3. So what I hear other people saying is so different than what I'm experiencing. And it's really getting to a place now where the average person is not going to be able to tell the difference between it and a robo taxi. Like, okay, sure. I think it's probably for me around 500 to 1,000 miles between critical intervention, safety critical intervention. And most drives are like no intervention at all. Don't touch anything. Even drive for, 8 hours and you don't have to touch anything, completely hands free. So, you know, sure, 1,000 miles per critical intervention is probably, you know, 10 to 100 times away from where it needs to be a robo taxi. But for your average driver who's driving, 5, 10 miles to the grocery store every day, driving to the office, you know, 30 minutes away and coming back home and doing the same commute, they're going to find that it's able to do almost all their drives. So, their ability to perceive the difference between 1,000 and 10,000, especially as it keeps getting better, is not very high. And as people see FSD and have firsthand experience with FSD driving them around on their car, on their friends' cars, it'll actually increase the market's perception of Optimus's lead as well. Because Optimus in the humanoid robotics game is entirely about the brain. Okay. everybody's going, oh, we got this, we got these kinds of hands. Well, that's all fine, but even a robot with inferior hardware would dominate in the market with a better software and a better AI foundation. So, what people are going to see with Tesla is they've done something completely unprecedented here in taking a software that can just look at the world anywhere and know how to move through it just by looking at it with the camera, not the need for a ton of mapping or anything like that. And that demonstration that they've done of this software, which has way better reliability than any AI model we've ever seen, better than ChatGPT. I mean, it is just accurate almost all the time. And that is what puts them in a great position to dominate in humanoid robotics. So I think as the mass market becomes more familiar with FSD, as they start to see what these latest generation of products can do, as they finally actually roll it out, I think the market's understanding of Tesla's lead with Optimus will be amplified as well. And that'll contribute to probably
Okay.
the all-time high that we're discussing.
All right. XAI.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback what Omar touched on. Is I think robotics is a great key to their success, but to specifically answer the question, it could just be when we agree to invest in XAI, that could drive Tesla to much higher highs, like the others that have invested in AI have seen in their stock price. Like Microsoft and Amazon and Meta. So I believe time is going to drive us to the greatest successes, but
Okay.
in the short term, I think, the investment in XAI would
Thank
probably
you.
be it. Thank you.
Omar, do you think an investment in XAI is going to propel the stock to all-time highs?
I think it helps the AI narrative, so that it could help with that. But I think really, I think about this like, imagine if you could be around when computers first came on the market. Like that's kind of like what robotics is to me. It's the dawn of this huge new market. And you saw it with personal computers, you saw it with portable computers, mobile phones, smartphones, which ended up being an even bigger market than the personal computer that you keep on your desk. Similarly, I think the humanoid robotics market, essentially computers that can move, are going to be even bigger than the market for smartphones. Because smartphones are really, one or two per person at most, right? Most people have one smartphone. So it requires a person to have it. It's fundamentally constrained by the population of the world. The robotics market, on the other hand, one person could have 5, 10 robots serving them, working for companies that produce products that they need. So the sort of autonomous computer robot, whether it's a humanoid robot or a robot that's in the form of a car or in the form of a drone, is actually going to be much bigger than even smartphones. So we're standing at the precipice of this huge market that most people haven't really realized is emerging and is possible now with today's deep learning technology. And if you look back at what people were saying at the dawn of the computer, it reminds me so much of what we're hearing about these cars now. People said, Steve Jobs, do you think we're really going to get to a world where everybody has a computer in their home? Do you think that's really realistic? Well, not only did everyone have one computer in their home, people have 10, 100 computers in their home. Who could imagine that, right? Like, yeah. Machine welcome. What's your answer to the question?
Well, I came up because specifically I definitely don't think it's going to be investing in XAI. I mean, what it's going to be is when Tesla starts making a lot more money again. That's it. When are they going to start making a lot more money again? That's when it's going to go to all-time highs.
I need a specific answer. More specific. Don't do a cop. You're better than a cop-out answer.
Print $1.20 earnings in a quarter.
Can you give me a milestone, like when the
I
new
just
Model
said
Y
it.
goes? Okay, when is that going to happen?
October 2025.
You don't think Tesla will print more than $1 per share until October 2025?
Well, that's about 100% higher than it is today. So that's quite a big increase. What do you think? It's just going to happen by magic?
I think when the capacity utilization increases of our factories, we'll easily get to $1 per share. And I think that's going to happen when, let's say a year or 2 years after the interest rates come down. So let's start in, you say October 2025? So I guess we agree then.
I don't understand. You were acting like I was too bearish, and then you said a year or two. So, like, we agree.
Yeah. Okay. I don't like agreeing with you. Okay. So now it's going. It's not good for your space. The viewership is going down right now. Yeah, exactly. I know. I want to say one thing about your listeners. No, that's based on your listeners. I give them credit. They think they have a perfect IQ of 100. Okay. Let's see. We took our charging stations. I mentioned China. New energy vehicles crossed 50% milestone in July. Grew 37% year over year. So not China. The majority of sales in China are new energy vehicles, which equals hybrid. But Tesla had its best first month of a quarter ever in China. So for the China, that's some really good sales numbers in July as well. What do you make of the economy in China seems to be getting better? EVs are making a huge surge in China in July.
Yeah, I mean, the economy is still a little rough, but certainly you're seeing incredible sales penetration for EVs and hybrids. I believe new energy vehicles, which compose of plug-in hybrids and full electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, were more than 50% of China's car sales, which compose of plug-in hybrids and full electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, were more than 50% of China's car sales for the first time. So they're actually selling more cars with plugs than pure gas cars. And obviously, the infrastructure is ubiquitous. So you're really seeing the technology penetrate that market, and they're kind of a leading example. More affordable models that are smaller. I think just look at the success BYD has had in that segment. Tesla now is on more lists for governments, local governments, where they're allowed to procure these cars in part because some of the data security clearances that have been provided. So that's also opening up new doors to municipal fleets where, for example, BYD was dominating. Now they're actually allowed to buy Teslas too. So that helps. But really, the upgraded models, the new Model 3, new Model Y, super competitive market in China. There's so many EV players. Upgrading the new Model Y, I think a lot of people are waiting for that. They're very much more tuned to these things in China than in the US. And the new, more affordable models, I think a lot of people have been asking for a smaller, lower cost model. Like I said, BYD's been doing really well in that segment. Tesla's the number two brand. They're even beating most Chinese brands. I think a Tesla branded smaller vehicle for the Chinese market that's lower cost is going to do even bigger numbers than the Model Y there. So I think that will be really exciting to see. Maybe we'll get some more details on 1010. Then they've talked about wanting to bring FSD to China. Elon recently talking in his email about rolling it out. China is a very tech forward market. A lot of car buyers there, a lot of EV buyers are drivers for the first time. I think FSD is going to be huge in China if they can actually get it launched there. So
the compact FSD, I think, are going to continue to be growth drivers in the country, and really they have enormous room to grow. They're reporting their best sales in China ever, but there's still so many more EVs that are sold that aren't Tesla. BYD is still selling a lot more units than them. I think they could be doing a lot better, honestly, but they it's kind of shocking. China is not a market where you see foreign brands that high on the list in a number two position. So it's just a testament to Tesla's strength and how well they've integrated into the country that they've been able to maintain that very high position as one of the leading manufacturers for so long.
Okay, Egad. Egad, you have to unmute yourself for us to hear you. Okay. Michael, can you give us an update on your Q3 production deliveries estimates?
Sure. So currently, I'm going to start with production and then go to the deliveries. So for production, I estimate that Tesla has produced over 170,000 cars so far this quarter and is on track to produce around 445,000 for the entire Q3. And as for deliveries, I would increase my forecast slightly to 450,000 cars based on the strong data that we're seeing out of China. We need to continue to see strong data, probably 12,000 plus per week and rising out of the China weekly insurance registration data. So that's what to look out for. Yeah, that's my production estimate. But if you're curious, also, there's an update with Tesla Energy competitors that I can share.
Yeah, before we get to that, what do you think is driving the strength in China?
So at first I thought it could be because they're exporting less because of the European tariffs. But the data came in and the exports were actually pretty solid for the month of July. So that just indicates that there's strong demand in China. I'm sure the refresh Model 3 is gaining steam. The economy is probably somewhat picking up, and as Omar mentioned, the electric vehicles are gaining steam as well and becoming more popular. So I honestly don't know if I could pinpoint one particular factor because I'm not a close China watcher, but I would say it's probably a combination of those factors.
Machine.
Isn't it a combination of they cut prices and have low interest rates?
Yeah, but the interest rates in China are already like naturally lower than in the U.S. And they do have, I think, a 0% financing deal that's been going on for months now.
Yeah,
So
they've been
with
offering 0% financing, $0 down payment. And then, of course, you also have those new approvals. There were a lot of places where they said, like, a Tesla isn't allowed to drive here. Now all those restrictions have been lifted. So Beijing smiling upon Tesla. If you remember, the stock kind of shot up when that happened. Bears were trying to say, oh, nothing actually happened. But something did actually happen. And local governments are allowed to buy it now. You're allowed to take it anywhere you want. So it's made it much more of a consideration. And those financing deals are pretty helpful too.
Michael, James Cat is projecting, I believe, 475,000, and you're at 450. Troy has been quiet in Q3. That's a wide gap we got there, don't we?
Yeah, I'm curious what James is seeing that would lead to such a high delivery number. I mean, China's doing well. It's not like off the charts. It's doing very well. It's not going to be much. Right now, I'm forecasting 165,000 units delivered in China, which is still assumes significant acceleration of the weekly deliveries. And then 165,000 in the US, which should be flat quarter over quarter. There's not much data in the US that we can go off of. Europe is supposed to be weaker due to the tariffs. And I really don't know where he's getting data that would indicate that much higher.
Okay. Donald Trump tied with Kamala Harris on Polymarket for the first time. There seems to be a bit of an increase in interest for the Democrats. Omar, what do you make of this? And do you think this poses a major risk to Tesla, given the political posts by Elon?
Yeah, so certainly Biden was a horrible candidate, and getting rid of him and making Kamala the ticket, she's not the greatest candidate herself. She didn't have very many fans, but she can form a coherent sentence. This has excited many Democrats and kind of shifted momentum away from the Republicans. But, personally, I think it's still a little early. People haven't gotten to know her. They haven't had a lot of discussions about policy. So far, it's mainly just sort of opposition to Trump. So, there is a greater chance that Kamala becomes the next president now. It's still early on. We'll see what happens, but it's looking better than the chance of Biden being reelected. And, pretty much all the polls confirm that. So, a Kamala administration, I would expect broadly to uh, continue the policies of the Biden administration. So, a lot of these policies haven't really been that helpful. They've kind of given Tesla the cold shoulder at time. There's been investigations, that type of thing. So, Harris is not Biden. It would be a new administration. There is always the potential to, reach out and maybe have a better relationship. Maybe they would be open to that. I think I would expect Elon to try and reach out to anybody. There is a little bit of a risk with her, him calling her a communist or whatever, maybe pisses her off. That's not smart. But I think that, whoever it is, I hope that they'll try and work with them. Trump seems very positive on Tesla. Kamala seems positive on EVs. So really, I think Tesla will be fine either way. The Democrats have kind of come after Elon. So Elon kind of has to punch back at them and say, hey, people shouldn't be voting for them. But ultimately, it's up for Americans to decide who's going to be our leader. And we're going to vote on it. And Elon is just one person. Um, so, I hope whoever the president is, they'll be friendlier. Harris, hopefully she'll realize that this sort of um, fight with Elon and Tesla has actually been quite damaging to the Democrats. And I think she would probably be wise to try and, patch that relationship up, calm him down a little bit. But, we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's August and we've got a few more months until the election. I'm really tuned into, for example, the first debate and how that goes. Now Trump is kind of the old candidate, right? So we'll see how they perform in the debate, who people feel, sort of won that debate. But in my sense, it's hard to really know if this lead is going to endure or this sort of momentum is going to endure once people get to know Kamala more. Like if you kind of listen to her, she doesn't really inspire that much confidence. She kind of, gives you this word salad. Nobody really liked her before this, you know? Then all of a sudden she's the candidate that's taking on Trump. Oh, Kamala, oh my God, she's so amazing. Really? No one was even noticing her last week. She didn't, no one was excited about her. And now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my God, Kamala, you know? So we'll see what happens. I think it shows that it was a good move to replace Biden. So the Republicans actually gave him some great
Yeah.
advice.
Machine, do you think this is a problem for Tesla, given in the last few months, Elon has been associated with the Republican Party?
Well, I think he might be making it a problem. I don't think it had to be a problem just by being associated with the Republican Party. I don't think people want to attack, government wants to attack individuals necessarily just for voting for a particular party. However, if you go out and slander candidates who might end up being your president, I'm not saying it's right, but they might make decisions that are against you and your company. And that doesn't seem like the proper fiduciary responsibility of a CEO of a company to do.
Okay. You know, I was venturing towards other platforms a little bit. I mean, venturing, kind of searching for um, interesting ideas to discuss here. And I noticed this post on Threads. And you can see at the top, this person says, and by the way, Threads is littered with posts like this. The hate towards Tesla and Elon is really intense on Threads. And this person says, if I bought a secondhand Tesla and didn't use their chargers, would Elon see any benefit? Like they're literally trying to find a way to drive a Tesla without Elon benefiting from it, which is amazing. So this post is at the top of your screens, Machine.
Yeah, I don't think people in this space and X understand, and the internet is not the real world. So the internet on X, the internet on Threads or Reddit isn't the real world by itself. These people on these platforms are a little more exuberant, right, than people in the real world who are just like, I just got to work my job, man, and drive home. Uh, so a lot of them don't pay attention to details, and but on the edges, this is happening. And what I fear is that the more and more that Musk gets involved in these little tit for tats and little tiffs, uh, the more exposure his viewpoints might get into the regular folk, and they may be turned off a bit more than they have been before. And I mean, personally, I'm a pretty rational person, and like from an investment standpoint, I wouldn't care what Musk's politics are. Uh, and I personally, my politics are complicated because they're not left or right. But as I see all these people, the way they either just follow what Musk says or get pissed off, like to me, what he's saying now is not rational. It's just pure fear mongering, and I'm starting to get pissed off because he's not some truth seeker. He's now trying to sway things to one side, and he's using rhetoric to do it, and he's literally slander on a presidential candidate. And some people, not me, but people like me who are, kind of rational are going to be like, dude, F you. I'm not going to buy your car. So that's relevant from an investment standpoint if you're worried about demand over long term.
Okay. While I go to just for fun, I would like you to come up with a number, at least an order of magnitude of people that feel that way. Okay. Just for fun.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and definitely, know personally, friends who are from San Francisco, New York, so on, or even outside of those areas who are, liberal, who a few years ago probably would have, thought about buying a Tesla, and now like absolutely hate Musk because of, all the political rhetoric and being so one-sided politically. But I also wanted to talk about the Trump interview on Monday, but you can come back to me if you don't want to talk about that now.
Omar.
You know what I thought was funny was we had that conversation yesterday, and you got this guy who works on an oil field and hates EVs, but he goes, I love Elon. What he did for X, what he did with X, buying, supporting freedom of speech, I love that. Now, he's not going to go out and actually buy an EV. He still hates EVs. But it was funny that he had a more positive view on the X acquisition, whereas most of the actual EV customers are, typically echoing more of machine sentiments.
machine.
Yeah, I mean that's the main problem here. Is of course some people are going to agree with him, but they just don't buy EVs. I mean, we all know this now, and that's the predicament. But if you ask me the order of magnitude of people who feel this way, I mean, this is changing right now. Okay, and I would estimate the number of people who feel like I do is at least 5 to 10% of the U.S. population.
Okay, so you're saying tens of millions of people after the last years or 2 years of posts, you're saying tens of millions of people will never consider a Tesla.
I'm saying each person you start showing tweets like him saying Kamala Harris
See,
is a
that's a yes or
communist.
no question. It's a yes or no question.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they will not buy a Tesla.
So what do you make of the post at the top?
Which one? If I
This
bought a
guy,
secondhand Tesla,
this guy on Threads is literally trying to find a way to buy a Tesla
yeah,
despite his emotions against Elon.
he's trying to rationalize both the fact that it's the cheapest EV, but he doesn't want anything to go to Musk. That is the fundamental struggle of people right now. It is the
But look
cheapest
how,
EV,
but the thing is, the machine, you have to realize this guy is going to end up buying a Tesla at some point.
and he's going to buy it not with all the extra bells and whistles. Lower margins for Tesla than they could have had. Lower PE ratio than
Speculation,
they could have had.
speculation,
It's all speculation.
conjecture.
Everything in this
Yeah.
space is speculation.
It's only when you're here. Before you join, we were having an amazing discussion, and I'm fending off all these haters of yours in the replies now, every now and then. Just try to like scale back a little bit. I think you're mistaken. I think maybe tens of millions of people in an election year, especially if you also consider Europe. But I think these people will come around, just like the haters of Mark Zuckerberg came around eventually, and now they are literally finding shelter in threads of Mark Zuckerberg's service to hate on Elon. The same people who were hating on Mark 4 years ago, now they're like, Mark is our savior.
I got to go in a minute meeting, but I will just say I agree. People have a short term memory. If Musk stops the antics and he actually gets on a wakeboard showing his man tits while holding the American flag, people will vote for buy Teslas again.
And chug a beer. Yeah. Omar, bring us in.
Yeah, I mean, I think just when we think about that guy who was talking about his experience and that sort of seed being planted with the guy who hates EVs, who would have thought it was all a fraud, but now he's in Tesla Live, right? Now he's talking to us. Now he's sharing his objections about, oh, well, doesn't it actually cause more emissions? And that conversation's starting. You're not going to see it in the Q2 numbers, okay? But in terms of the long-term transition to EVs, where we need to get everybody buying EVs, I mean, this is why Musk is kind of, a marketing genius, I think. And maybe he'll turn out to be crazy. Maybe he'll turn out to be a huge mistake. But I'm guessing all the whining losers are just gonna forget about it. Oh my God, he called Kamala a communist. How could you say that about Kamala? Like, that's so not okay, man. I'm gonna go buy like a Hyundai. Okay, loser, go buy a Hyundai and go drive yourself. At the end of the day, we're not gonna be selling cars anymore, okay? I don't think people get that. This is the CEO who is ending car ownership. We're going to move into a model where most people consume cars as a service. And it's not your average consumer who buys and owns the car. It's going to be a company that's just picking the best, lowest price, lowest cost of maintenance company that can deliver millions of units and have the best self driving models. So, the stock is really being discounted and expectations are really, because people feel so personally about this. Oh, Elon, how could you say that?
she's not a communist, and their emotions are blinding their judgment, and they're saying, oh, this is going to be the end for this company. No, it's not. Okay. Throw your temper tantrum. He's going to say whatever he wants. And when you look back in history, the people who stood up against the system and spoke up, even when everybody hated them for it, are often looked back on as actually kind of brave. So you don't know how history is going to react. I mean, Yaman just mentioned Zuckerberg. Ah, we hate Zuckerberg. He gave us Trump. Now Zuckerberg's the savior. They're running to Zuck to save them from Elon. In a few years, they'll be running to Elon to save them from the next guy who's the new, bad guy. So it doesn't really matter what they think when we're not selling cars anymore. And what people are really missing is that Elon Musk has become one of the most powerful people on earth. Okay? He can move elections. He can change who is the president of the United States. When he wants a law changed, when he wants something done, he can get that done. RJ Scaringe can't get that done. He can't make a deal with China. Elon Musk can get that done. He's got a jet. He'll go fly over there. He'll meet with the guy, and they will change the law. Okay? You may not like him. You may not like what he's saying, but he's smarter than you, and he's doing this for a reason. And it's ultimately to benefit his companies. You think he's an idiot? He has way more Tesla stock than you. If he thought that this was seriously going to hurt Tesla irreparably, he wouldn't be doing it. He's doing this to help Tesla, to help SpaceX. And I think that'll become clear in the coming years.
Thank you, Omar. All right. Great space, everybody. In the first hour, we discussed Cybertruck, maybe some of the objections. I think West Six was here as well. We had somebody who is in the oil fields of Texas, and we got them to agree to a test drive with FSD on the Cybertruck with Omar, hopefully in September. We also discussed Optimus, robotaxis, what's going to lead to Tesla stock going to all-time highs again. You can follow the tweets at the top as time markers. And if you enjoy this space, you can also join Patreon. The link is at the top of your screens, and you can also use Joa Lives. Use code TSLA Live to get 5% of your purchase. Joa sponsors the space. Thank you very much, Joa. By the way, Omar, Joa sent out an email to their 20,000 people on their email list today, announcing that they're sponsoring Tesla Live. So hopefully that will get some new listeners, new subscribers, new sponsors in the future. So a lot of people are donating their time, donating their expertise to grow this space. And I think this space will grow to tens of thousands of daily active listeners by the end of this year, and hopefully more than 100,000 daily active listeners by the end of next year. And let's set that as a goal. Let's set that as a milestone in the future. More to come. And I'll look forward to speaking with you guys tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody, and take care.